I think the next slide also shows up a bit. Should be fine, I think. Okay, it's okay. It's not a problem,
it's okay,
right?
okay, it's okay.
It should be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
If you make it slideshow, that also may go away.
In PDF?
Yes. Yes, it's okay. I think, yes, Sapna, you may start.
Okay. So, Mr. Ravishankar, I'm just starting now. Is it fine with your presentation?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, on behalf of Indian Association of Physics Teachers, I warmly welcome you to our online lecture series dedicated to physics education research. This virtual space provides a valuable forum for physics educators to connect, collaborate, and explore innovative approaches to teaching and learning. We look forward to a productive and inspiring session or discussions. We are delighted to continue our series with the 15th lecture today. It's my privilege to welcome Professor P.K. Ahluwalia, the esteemed President IAPT. Under his visionary leadership, IAPT has made significant strides in advancing physics education. Thanks to his motivation and encouragement, we have successfully reached this stage. I extend warm welcome to Ms. Rekha Gorpade, the IAPT Secretary, for her unwavering commitment and support. I'm honored to welcome Mr. Ravishankar Subramaniam, renowned scientist from the Department of Physics and Astronomy of Purdue University, Indiana, USA. Mr. Ravishankar, who has a distinguished three-decade career in physics education at Chennai, began his graduate studies in August 2021 at Purdue University. Today, he will present a talk titled My Experiences in PER, Some Thoughts, Current Trends, and My Work. We anticipate gaining valuable insights from his expertise in this field. Welcome, Mr. Ravishankar. I am pleased to welcome Dr. K.K. Mashood, faculty at Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education, who will preside over today's session. Dr. Mashood received his PhD in Physics Education Research from Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai. Subsequently, he held prominent research positions, including a research associate at the STEM Transformation Institute at Florida International University and the Physics Education Research Lab at Michigan State University. Dr. Mashood's research, published in prestigious national and international journals, has made significant contributions to the field of physics education. His areas of expertise include modeling in science education, conceptual change, alternative conceptions in physics, and the development of concept inventories. His articles frequently appear in IAPT Bulletin, providing valuable insights into physics education research. Welcome, Dr. Mashood. I also welcome all the dignitaries and our participants who have joined us today. So before we start, I would like to invite Professor Ahluwalia to share his opening remarks. Then I will hand over the mic to Dr. Mashood to proceed. So Professor Ahluwalia.
Thank you, Sapna. I'm very happy to be part of this 15th lecture on physics education research. And I'm really looking forward to Ravishankar's lecture today. And I think he is not only a researcher presently at Purdue University, but he is a passionate teacher also of physics with a very long career. And at this stage, he is pursuing his PhD, is an inspiration for all of us. So thank you, Ravishankar ji, for accepting our invitation and becoming part of this series. And we are looking forward to a lot of discussion in this, as you have given in your abstract. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now I hand over the floor to Dr. K.K. Mashood for further proceeding. Dr. Mashood, I would like you to introduce Dr. Ravishankar.
Thank you, Dr. Sapna. It's a coincidence that me and Ravishankar are again meeting, actually not meeting, we have both authored an article for a magazine which was brought about by the IAPT as Academy of Physics Teachers from Kerala. And now I've got this opportunity to be part of a talk that he's giving. And as Professor Ahluwalia has mentioned, Ravishankar's trajectory is interesting and inspiring, that after 30 years of teaching physics, he is now in his final year of a PhD at the Department of Physics and Astronomy, Purdue University, USA. He also mentions the inspiration of Professor R. Ananthan, one of his teachers, and the association which lasted 25 years with Professor Ananthan, who passed away in 2017. So this talk, especially in an IAPT platform, I'd say it's a unique opportunity, being such a teacher with such a vast amount of experience, how this transitions happened. If hearing it from Mr. Ravishankar himself would be a pleasure. So over to you, Ravishankar.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Can you all hear me? And is my screen visible?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, it's 9:10 now by my time, and it should be 6:40 by your time. So please let me know how much time do I have for the whole session.
45 minutes for the talk and 15 minutes for discussions.
So I have 1 more hour?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's more than sufficient. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. This session should be less of a talk, and I would like to have more questions from your end as I proceed. So please do not wait to ask questions till the end. Anytime in between you have a question, please feel free to interrupt. I'm not too sure how it works here. If there is a question, how do people do that? Do they use a hand raise feature? Because I can't see that here. So will somebody monitor that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mashood will monitor it.
If there is a question on the chat or if there is a hand raised, I will intimate you. No problem.
Yeah. So Dr. Mashood, if you can do this to me, please interrupt me if somebody has a question. And they can put that question either in the chat or they can use the hand raise feature, because I can't see it on my screen here. Probably it's an iPad. That's the reason. I'm not too sure. So if you can do that. Yeah, thank you so much. So the audience, please text or chat with, put a note on the chat, and Dr. Mashood will be pleased to share the question with me, and I'll be pleased to respond to the question to the best of my knowledge. So this talk is about my experience in physics education research. PER stands for physics education research, some thoughts, some trends, and what I do. So to those curious about me, I am from Chennai, India. You can see the map, south of India, from the city of Chennai. And now I'm in the city of West Lafayette. West Lafayette is a town it's a small town actually in the state of Indiana. You can see on the left side, the map of the United States. It's some distance from Chicago. And this is a small town, it's a village town, nothing much happening here. It's not a city, very quiet place. So it's from India to Indiana. So that has been my journey. So I'm here since 2021. I'm now in my final year. I'm planning to graduate by this time next year. So that's the plan. And more about Perdu. This is my department. This is the building in which I'm sitting now. You can see the arrow shows the entry to the building. And you can see a small bubble on the left side. Can you all see the bubble on the left side? That's where the room in which I'm currently sitting is there. The room in which I'm currently sitting, this is my physics lab here for undergrad students. So I'm talking to you from my physics lab. So just to tell you something about the place where I'm in. It's a beautiful place. The weather is beautiful now. It's fall weather, very pleasant, the best part of the year. And yeah, that's about Perdu. Before we start, I should, you all mentioned that I was a physics teacher for a long, long time. I started teaching when I was 18 years old, and I moved to Perdu when I was 48. I'm 51 now. So in my classes, when you enter the class, there will be a board which says respect. So that's my personal teaching philosophy. So I invite everybody to think about the word respect and think about what it means to you as a teacher, as a researcher, as a student in a classroom, or as any person. What does respect mean to you? I request you to take a moment to think about it. And then my favorite quote is due to Carl Sagan from his wonderful book, The Demon Haunted World. And he says, there is no such thing as a dumb question, and every question is a cry to understand the world. So that's my favorite quote. So the reason I put up this is in today's session, if the audience has any question, please feel free to interrupt and ask a question. Any question is fine. That's the way I see it. And of course, I also urge everybody to be respectful of any question that pops up. We may have our personal views about a particular question, but I think it's important to be respectful to the other person. So any question is fine. So let us accept any question as it comes. So that's my personal teaching philosophy. I would like to tell you a little bit about why I am in physics education research. I would attribute everything to my teacher. You can see the picture there. It's a very old picture, nearly more than 30 years, maybe 25 years. That's my teacher teacher there. He's no more now. And I was very young, maybe early 20s back then. I was in college. And that's my teacher, my inspiration. And it's from him I learned all my physics. So I owe my physics knowledge to him. And obviously, I love to teach physics. I enjoy doing physics. I'm more of a hands-on person. I like to do experiments in physics. And then I'm also willing to learn from others. That's important when you are into research. And the reason I moved to grad school is when I was young, I did up to my master's, but I didn't. It was not possible for me to do my PhD. So I thought I should do it sometime in my life. And fortunately for me, I got the opportunity to pursue my PhD here at Perdu University. Of course, I had a note on my advisor now, Dr. Sanjay Ribello. In fact, I joined this group upon his invitation. We met somewhere outside. And he said, Ravi, why don't you come and join my group? So it was more of an accidental entry into his group. So, and he's a fantastic advisor, gives me a lot of freedom to do what I like. So credit goes to two people, one, my teacher, Ananthan, and my current advisor, Dr. Sanjay Ribello. So, right, let's get on to business. So what is PER? So I want the audience to think about some questions. In fact, I would invite a few responses from the audience. Do you think physics education research is physics research? That's one question I want to think about. And then a more fundamental question, what is physics research? Let's say, you have some view, whatever view you may have, it's fine. What is physics research fundamentally? And then another question I want to think about is, what do you think teaching is? Is it an art or is it a science? And also, what is physics education research all about? Is it just about teaching, or there's something more to it? I may not be answering all these questions, so do not expect me to give an answer. I want the audience to think about answers for or search answers for these questions. But I would love to hear from the audience. Anybody from the audience who would like to share a few thoughts on any question here? It could be your opinion. It's fine. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Professor Ravishankar.
Yep.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. First of all, can you please say hi to Sanjay? We sat next to each other in Kansas for 1 year almost.
Oh, Dr. Sanjay. Oh, you want me to convey my hi to him. So may I know who you are, by the way? Sorry.
My name is Meera Nagaraja Rao.
Okay, fantastic. Are you in somewhere in Bengaluru or somewhere?
Yes, I am.
I remember. So, see, you know what? He had mentioned your name somewhere in Bengaluru. You are a professor
in the university.
somewhere in...
I'm in the Bangalore University.
See, see that?
You have a
Yeah.
good memory.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is regarding the first question that you asked. Is PER considered as physics research at all? I think in the Indian context, it has been a very, very pertinent question, especially with the physics people having a tendency to look at it as an education research. In fact, to start the PER group in Bangalore University, I had to struggle for a couple of years, even to make them understand that you have to have a domain expertise if you are in a domain-based education research. You cannot be person dealing with understanding how physics has to be learned or taught if you are not a physicist. So,
Fantastic.
but
Fantastic.
I have seen that in the US, it hasn't been so hard. Most of the departments have it as a joint venture between education and physics departments. You may have to just
Mhm.
pick courses which are sort of overlapping so that you can still be a part of a physics research group.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Yeah, thank
my
you, Dr.
question
Meera.
is, what is
Dr. Meera,
your opinion about this being considered as a physics research? I'm sorry, I'm throwing it back at you.
yeah, I know. You're smart. You're trying to put the. I
No,
thought
no,
I
no,
can
I'm
just give it to
sorry.
the audience and escape. And you are smart, and you're trying to corner me. Wonderful. In fact, I'm planning a talk sometime later. If IAPT wants, I can give another talk sometime. I'm going to talk about this issue because this is quite a controversial issue. There are people who have a lot of strong opinions on this, and I think it's important that people have strong opinions. I think it's good for the field, it's good for research, good for us. I think it's nice to have of course, strong at the same time, respectful opinions. But again, you mentioned about things being probably different in US, but I recently heard somebody tell me it's not very different. So it might be something very common. So, yeah, I'm not going to answer that question straight away. My apologies to you, Dr. Meera. But I love what you said. I totally love what you said. I mean, you were to the point, and that's a great question for all physics education researchers to think about, all researchers to think about for that matter. It's a great question to think about. Great. So that means I'm going to skip the second question because...
Professor Ahluwalia had raised his hand. You want to?
Oh, please go ahead, Dr. Ahluwalia. Please go ahead.
In fact, it's a very interesting set of questions which you have posted on the slide. And different people can have different opinions.
Exactly. The idea is to get opinion
yeah.
from people. Yeah.
And I think teaching is both art and science. There is no doubt about it. It's
Teaching
not
is both art and science.
Not or. It is both art and
both.
science.
I love that. In fact, it makes it it's interesting, Dr. Ahluwalia, because you say art and the science, and if you say physics as a science, then teaching becomes a science, and then physics education should become a science.
I'll give you some examples. When we recall wonderful teachers around us.
By the way, 1 minute, audience. I know you're all excited to respond, but I would appreciate if you can keep it short so that I also can complete what I have to say. Yeah, please, Dr. Ahluwalia, please go ahead.
When we say art, then it is, it comes to our mind famous teachers like, say, Feynman. And we have in India also, very famous teachers in IIT Madras itself. We have V. Balakrishnan, whose YouTube videos are wonderful. I mean, that's what is there. PR is just not about teaching. It is about more about learning physics. I think that is the most important part of it. When we are talking about PER, the methodology of doing PER may be slightly different from what we do in proper physics. And it's like more of a, a social scientist doing physics research, because the methodology which you use is very, very different. So these are some thoughts. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. That was very insightful, very insightful. I want to know, Dr. Mashood, if there's some student in the meeting and they have a question.
Not only these people have raised or.
Okay. Is there
I-
anybody
if-
else waiting in the line to share a
No,
thought?
no. If there is anybody, I will definitely intimate you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's fantastic that Dr. Meera and Dr. Ahluwalia had shared some fantastic insights, and in some sense, they've touched upon all the 4 questions. But I'm not going to give a response to any of these questions straight away because this deserves a separate, detailed discussion, which I'm actually working on. I mean, it's in my mind. I'm planning to write an article to address this question sometime. So because this can be a deep question for any physics education researcher, almost putting that person to an existential crisis, right? People in your field don't say, hey, you're doing physics research. That can lead to an existential crisis. But anyway, that's an important question to ask. And one simple answer to give is, see, it's all research. When you do research, you just do research. That's nothing like a subject. Because when you do research, it's nowadays people talk about everything is interdisciplinary, right? That being the case, when you do research, you try to answer a question. So it doesn't matter the physics question or a mathematics question or education question. It's a question you're trying to answer. And the way to that question, the way to that solution or the answer may not be as simple as we think. So this is the question I would encourage the audience to think about and form opinions. Maybe sometime we'll have a more detailed discussion on this. I'm going to move to the next slide. I always wondered, why do we need physics education research? Do we need physics education research? So to answer this question, I think we need to ask ourselves some questions. Some of the questions I have in my mind are, do we think our education system can do better? So that's a question. First question we need to think about, can we do better? My personal view is, if you say there's nothing to do better, I think we may be dishonest. Because if we say there's nothing to do better, then everything is fine in this world. So a modest or a humble approach to the problem would be to say, hey, there must be something to do better. And we know education systems are all complex. All of you are teachers, you know how complicated things are. So obviously there's something we can do better about it. Our students deserve it. Like Dr. Ahluwalia mentioned, PER is about, it's not about teaching, it's about learning. So the student becomes the center of attention. And then also another question is, mostly if you see world over, a lot of teaching goes on through lectures. One question we need to ask is, do students enjoy sitting through lectures? Does it happen? Are the lectures interactive enough? Do we engage the audience in the classroom? Are we merely talking to the students? So can we do better? I'm not saying we have to do away with the lectures. I love lectures. I give lectures, right? Lectures are a fantastic way of teaching any subject for that matter. So I'm not here to condemn lectures, but certainly I think we can do a lot more when it comes to the way we handle lectures. Another question we need to think about is, does real learning happen in schools and colleges? Of course, one can ask, what is real learning? Again, I leave it to the audience to think about, because these are the honest, soul-searching questions we need to ask. They could be troubling. These questions could be troubling. But again, that's what research is all about. And we know these are all tough questions as teachers. But then we'll have to live with these questions because that's our day-to-day life. And then we need to ask, are classrooms engaging? Do we engage everybody in the classroom? Do we address the fact that students are all different? Not everybody learns the same way. We always look at homework and exams, which means you need to write some answers. Is that the only way we're going to assess students? Are there better ways of engaging students? Some students are all hands-on people. They may not do well in lectures or exams. They may do really well when you ask them to make things, create things. So somebody, Dr. Aluwalia said, teaching is both an art and a science. So learning physics is also an art, right? There's a way you do things. There's a way you like to learn. So as educators, are we addressing the diversity in a classroom? That's my next question. Do we appreciate there are diverse learners in a classroom? And finally, of course, do we ask questions? So if you do all this, if we have thought about all these things, I think there's a strong case for involving oneself in physics education research, just like Dr. Meera pointed out, towards our efforts to bring in physics education research. I'm sure she had all these questions, and I'm sure more questions at this, and that explains our efforts. And Dr. Meera, I hope your efforts were successful and you have a PER group now there. Do you have a PER group now, Dr. Meera?
Yeah. 3 of my students got their PhD in physics education research.
Wonderful. So yeah, I'm glad.
I had to pick students whose career I was not putting at risk. They were teachers already.
Right. I mean, that's great. It's great you did that, because teachers are most equipped. In fact, I moved to PER after a 30-year career. I told you, right? I told you that 30 years. I mean, it makes a huge difference. The way I do things, the way I involved in my research, my teaching background means a lot to me. And you said the disciplinary know-how.
Yeah.
Right. You need that. Otherwise, it'd be just education research and not physics education research.
We don't even know what are the pertinent questions if we are not a domain expert.
Exactly. So the domain expertise matters a lot. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to assume that we need PER. The question is, some questions to ask are, how to do PER? Physics, how do we do that? Then how do we engage in research in the first place? So is there a method in research? So how do you start? How does one get into research? How do you start research? I mean, would the audience like to share thoughts? I'd like to have some new speakers. Dr. Meera had got a chance. Dr. Aluwalia had got a chance. Is there anybody else who would like to share a thought on this question? How do you, in your own experience? Please go ahead. Dr. Mashood, is anybody waiting in the line to share a thought?
No, not yet.
Anybody else?
You can go ahead, and if there is some questions.
Dr. Mashood, what do you think? Any thoughts as a researcher? Would you like to share a few thoughts?
I agree with the point that you mentioned, like whether it is a math research, physics research is research, and you are investigating a problem, and the nature of the question and the nature of the problem demands that you adopt certain methods to answer it. So there is a generic aspects to it that I agree, but that said, specific domains have its own idiosyncrasies, its own characteristic. So physics education research essentially involves dealing with human mind and complex facets of society, which may not be there, for example, if you are doing research on a purely physical system or like chemistry. The fact that human mind and society comes into the picture as very key variables, that creates that gives a different dimension to PER. At least that's my opinion. There's one question. It's again from Meera. Okay.
Good.
So
that's
my like thoughts.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's very, very good. Fantastic. Thanks for that. Is there anybody else in line to share a thought?
Yeah, I just want to answer like how to do. You said how to do PER. So I think that
1 minute, ma'am. May I know who's the speaker?
I'm Sapna.
Sapna, please go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah. So you said that how to do PER. This question tells me like if I am a teacher, it becomes easy for me to do this physics education research. Then my students and my classroom becomes the lab, and I can do this type of a research. But in case I'm not a teacher, then I think slightly it's difficult to think in terms of this field, physics education. So what I feel is like I have done work in physics education research. I've done my PhD. So after doing my PhD in physics education, I found that my perception of teaching has totally changed, and my way of teaching has also improved. So I feel that as a teacher, it becomes easy for me to do research in physics education.
I like that. I like that. In fact, from what you said, it's going back to what Dr. Aluwalia said, that you are blended the art and science aspects.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, that's what I mean. I had actually put the question as art, and Dr. Aluwalia was very careful to catch that. Hey, that's not art, it's and. I like that.
Dr.
I really like that.
Pragya have raised her hands. Please go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Is
Yeah.
Pragya a teacher, a student, professor?
Yeah, I am Pragya Nopani, and I have taught in the school senior secondary classes for about 25 years. And now I'm running an organization called Anveshika, where we encourage activity-based teaching learning of physics. So when I
Oh,
started,
Anveshika, I know that. I was there with H.C. Verma, is it?
yes.
I was there.
The
I was
Delhi
been to
chapter,
Sopan
we
2 times.
started.
I've been to Sopan 2 times.
Yes, okay. That's wonderful to know. So when we started this work in 2012 in Delhi, and we thought that 11th, 12th is being taught so dryly that all that is happening is that we are focused on good marks in the examination. But I was asking myself, what can my students do other than getting good marks in the exam after attending a lesson in the class? But the students were simply not interested. They were so much focused on getting good marks. When we showed the demonstrations, there was a lot of interest, but then there were no questions coming. So we thought that this disease is probably there even in junior classes. So we started working with class 9, 10 students, and even there we found there were no questions coming up. Then we went to 6, 7, 8, and finally we are now working with classes 4, 5 also. And wonderfully, when we show a situation, they do ask a lot of questions, but then we realize that the questions are not going to come on their own. We have to ask a question which is like a frame in which the answers will fall, and these answers should be questions themselves. So when I'm showing some demonstration, if I'm asking them that what can you change, what all can you change, and so when they tell me, let us say, there is a demonstration in which a paper star is made to, let us say, float on water, and then it opens up. So this is a wonderful phenomena. They see that the paper stars are opening up like flowers. So when I asked them, what can you change? Somebody said that instead of paper, we can take a plastic material. So then I say, okay, now you ask a question which relates to this change. And now there are a lot of questions coming up. So when we specify a situation, then there are a lot of questions. Then supposing I'm talking about teaching of, let us say, Venus flytrap. And then may ask, what are the parts which help the Venus flytrap to trap an insect? And then what is the relationship? How do they work together to make the Venus flytrap trap bugs? Now, when I specify this relationship, then a lot of questions are coming up. So I realize that the situations I give must be such that the children can be made to ask specific questions, and this must be part of the learning outcome. They must be assessed on this. Then this can be done. And so, but I'm still researching on it. I'm still finding out answers.
Fantastic, Dr. Pragya, right? Pragya, yeah, Pragya. Thank you. I really like what you say, because and you bring your experience with handling kids, young kids, And I can really relate to the struggle that, hey, how do I make my students ask questions? In fact, you actually touched upon sort of the second and third questions there, right? You're actually telling your students to engage in research. It's not about teachers and graduate students and PhD students engaging in research. Young kids can engage in research at whatever their level they are. In my view, research is an attitude. So what you are trying to do, Ms. Pragya, is that you are trying to get an attitude of research into the kids. So that's fantastic. I really appreciate your efforts. I know Anveshika, they do a great job. I met with 2 times I've been to Sopan myself. I was there for about 2 times, about 10 days each or something like that. So yeah, I got good friends there. I met good friends. I've met with Dr. H.C. Verma a couple of times. So that was fantastic. Going back to what you said about students asking questions. What about demonstrations first? The problem with demonstrations, they are great. They capture people's attention, but still they are passive. That's the issue with demonstration. Ideally, we must have everybody try something out on their own.
Interrupt. There are a couple of things in the chat as well.
Oh, great. I just come 1 minute, Mashood. I'll just complete a short response to that, and then I'll get back. Demonstrations are great, but it's still passive because audience looks at the demonstration. At the moment, they can get excited if they think it's exciting, or maybe they don't. Ideally, we must have everybody engaging with something on their own, but that's going to demand a lot of resources, and we don't have resources. Teachers know that very well. Am I right, teachers? So where is the money? Where is the time? We want to do a lot of things, but then it's all very difficult. So we need to find ways of doing things better with whatever resources we have. So I can absolutely relate to what Dr. Pragya pointed out. Yeah, Mashood, sorry, I just interrupted you. Please do share a couple of questions which the audience might have.
So I assume that almost all in the audience are teachers and there are no students here, but I may be wrong. If there are any students, please, because I think Ravishankar would like to prioritize those. But please let us know. So this is the there are 2 comments from Ashwini Tiwari. First one, research starts with a curiosity in the mind and hunger to find the answer. I think that was a prompt, like answer to one of your prompts. Second one from Divya, to engage in the research, the first thing is love for the subject and idea to solve the problem. And Meera has asked a question. Students are extremely reluctant to ask questions in class to teachers, more so in the Indian context. What do you attribute this to? And you want for me to take all the thing at one go?
Let's, with the due apologies to the others, let's take one question. I like the responses which Divya and the first
Ashwini.
person, I don't remember.
Ashwini.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my memory is that bad, not too good. I can't see the chat here, that's a problem.
There's one more comment which is like a follow-up to, like an answer to this. Maybe due to a mass education system, teacher-student ratio in almost Indian classroom is 1:80. I think he's responding to that question of why this.
Great. Yeah.
So that's all. You continue.
Yeah, thank you, the audience, for chipping in with your thoughts. Fantastic. This is more of a discussion rather than a talk. I like that. There's something I can take away from today's meeting. I like to go back to Dr. Meera's question about how do you engage? Why do people don't ask questions? That baffles me actually, because look at our culture. If you see, we talk about Bhagavad Gita, right? And what did Krishna do there? What did Arjuna do there? Arjuna was bombarding Krishna with questions. We have come from a culture of Bhagavad Gita, and this Arjuna, he just bombards this guy with questions, and he's God. Krishna is God. So you question even God. So Dr. Meera's question is interesting because when we are from a culture where you can question God, you're not even questioning teachers. So yeah, it is there probably in our culture, but we probably lost it. I do not know why. I think we are, as teachers, we have to keep trying, and I think we can make a change. So point is, students are reluctant for a number of reasons. Number one, They're worried about what others would think. They're worried about that. Hey, if I ask a question, what would my friends say? You know, and also we have this feeling that somebody who asks questions is the one who doesn't understand. That's very sad.
Yeah.
The one who asks the question is the one who's trying to understand. But we tend to think that somebody who's asking a question, oh, this guy doesn't seem to understand things. That's super unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't understand, it's great. I mean, that's great. He's trying to understand. He's the most, or he or she is the most important asset in the classroom, I would say. So I think, again, that's where the efforts of Dr. Pragya are important. You have to get that habit into kids right from a young age. You have to make them feel comfortable about asking questions. Don't make them feel bad about questions. And they're not just physics questions. They're not just physics questions. Any question they ask, you need to say, hey, that's a good question, but I do not know the answer. Maybe you can go to the library and find the answer. Or you can say, yeah, let's go to the library together. Let's find the answer together. If you can bring up your own kids like that, they would not be happy. They would not be hesitant to ask questions, but we need to do that more consciously.
I was also wondering,
even if you do not know the answer, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, but I was also wondering if it's also because they can't articulate their doubts in the language. There is a language cognition which is very important when you have to ask question, at least at the higher level.
That is a fantastic point. In fact, there are two aspects of the problem there. One is the language, which is English, which is a foreign language to us, and we don't think we need to find out if we think in that language. Unless you're very read, it's very difficult to say whether you're thinking in that language. So unless you read a lot of English, for example, I read a lot of English. I think in English, but I like my mother tongue. I value my mother tongue a lot. But I don't know. I forgot a script on my mother tongue. But I'm in Tamil Nadu. But I can read and write in Tamil, but not in my mother tongue, which is Telugu. That's the language is one thing. There's another language. Physics is a language. Can they use the physics vocabulary? Can they talk like a physicist? Again, they don't need to talk like an advanced physicist. Can they talk about velocity, displacement, acceleration like a physicist? So there are two language challenges here. One is the conversational, normal language we use in conversation, which is obviously foreign. It's obviously foreign, right? And then there's another language, physics language. It's two things, and that could be a super cognition load.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a very heavy cognitive load. Yeah.
So that's a fantastic point you touch upon. In fact, I always tell my students that learning physics itself is like a learning language.
Yes.
Learning physics is like learning a language. But is that Dr. Meera, by the way, that question by Dr. Meera?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I always tell people, look at the way we learned our mother tongues. Nobody taught you the grammar. Nobody taught us the grammar, but we are conversant in our mother tongues. But look at physics. We do physics in a probably a wrong way. We are trying to teach grammar in the form of laws. Hey, this is Newton's law. This is relativity law, the theory of relativity. You give the laws and then try to teach. I think there might be some issue there. I'm not saying that is wrong. I'm only saying that is something we read. Because I remember when I was in college, I learned Sanskrit. 2 years I learned Sanskrit. I couldn't speak in Sanskrit because they were teaching me grammar first. Well, a few years ago, I went to a French class. 2 months I attended. They won't teach you grammar. They will not teach you script. They will talk. They will not translate. I could speak French in 2 weeks' time. By the way, the Sanskrit Bharati of India has done it. By the way, I attended a 10-day session. 10 days, you go to the course. You can speak in Sanskrit a few sentences. Because they don't teach you the grammar. They don't teach you the script. They don't translate. The teacher will not translate. She will refuse to. You can ask questions in English. She will answer only in Sanskrit. So point is how to make people talk like a physicist. So all that has to come from an young age, and that's why people like Pragya are doing a fantastic job. I don't know if I've answered the question, but I thank you for provoking these ideas from us. Thank you. Thanks
more comments are there, and there's a
please go ahead. Yeah, we have time. I think we have time. It's
So,
9:50, 20 minutes more. Yeah, please, let's go ahead. Let's take a couple of
is
questions.
a comment, rather optimistic note from Meenakshi Sayal. She says, as per NEP, when learning outcomes are taken into consideration during assessment, condition will certainly improve. The next one is from Miss Uttra. Beautiful conversation. Exactly, technical vocabulary skills needs a lot of attention. Third one from Somashegara. He says demonstrations in a class need to attract the attention of students. Apart from students asking questions, even the teacher can play a greater role in motivating students with probing right questions.
Yes, that's fantastic. Great points.
These are the comments. There's a
Yeah, you must actually, Mashood, if you can, you probably make a list of the questions and who asked, and maybe you can put that somewhere. I don't know how you do that, because this video is going to be there, I suppose, online somewhere. Along with that, the audience's questions are super important. So if you can somehow collate those questions, it'd be great.
I think we can repeat it later. That's my guess.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm going to skip this slide.
From Professor Ahluwalia, if you want to.
Sorry?
Professor Ahluwalia raised his hands.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Let me, Dr. Ravi, tell you one thing.
I'm not Dr.
I am
Dr. Ahluwalia, I'm just a student.
I am talking of a situation which was 50 years back when I was a student. Okay. I went to the teacher. I told him that, sir, कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, कुछ मदद करो. तो उन्होंने मुझे ना बोला 3 चीजें बोली. He told me 3 things. फिर देखो समझ में तब आएगा. सबसे पहले तो तुमको इंग्लिश आनी चाहिए. दूसरा तुमको मैथ्स आना चाहिए. फिर जाकर के फिजिक्स का नंबर आएगा. अब आप देख लो आप कहाँ. Now, very simply, he had given those 2 barriers in front of physics, which a student has to cross. Particularly when a student comes from a vernacular school, the biggest barrier is the language only. But fortunately, what has happened now is things have changed. And that is where PER becomes very important. I think there are so many things around a teacher now that the engagement with the student is possible, not only within the classroom, but outside the classroom also, which was never there earlier. I could at the most go to my teacher, a question पूछना है sir, हाँ बोलो, उसके बाद then I will come out. Today, I can have a full, chat somewhere happening in a classroom, which you can create on, say, Google, and keep on responding to that on 24/7 basis. And this is where the important part comes, that physics PER, how it can become mainstream physics department's concern.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ahluwalia. By the way, I do not know Hindi that much because, from my state, from Tamil Nadu, people don't want Hindi, the politics. But then I can sense, because I traveled a lot in India, and I have some broken Hindi I use to converse, because I use my Sanskrit to bypass. I use my Sanskrit knowledge to it's a mix of Sanskrit, Hindi, English.
Ravi,
I just mix
there
them
is
up.
one thing more which I don't understand, and that is this, that the same Nagari script is used for Sanskrit and for Hindi. They can read Sanskrit, but they have a kind of a barrier for reading Hindi. And this is something which I don't understand.
Yeah. In fact, as for the language, problem is most of us think in terms of, I think, cities. And there are only few cities, right? Like how many? Like 10 cities, 5 cities. But what about people in the villages and the towns? And English is probably not the best language for them.
Yes.
So, it's a big challenge then. The point is, most of, at least me, for that matter, I have read completely in English. So how do I teach in my own language, my local language, Tamil or Telugu? So at least I'm not trained for that enough. So, but that has to change somewhere. That has to change. The local language is important. Like Prime Minister Modi has pointed out that, I mean, they want the local language, right? The native language, the regional language to take the upper hand, and it could be any language that people are comfortable with.
Yeah, Professor Ravishankar, I'm not only talking of fluency in the language. I think the cause and effect also gets mixed up. They say acceleration causes force, Zeeman effect creates magnetic field. See, that comprehension is what I'm worried about. I have told them to ask questions in any language, but it seems to interfere in the way they think. That's my concern. That's all. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
These are all very important points. So that's why physics education is complicated, because we are handling too many things.
Yeah, true.
Too many things, and that's overwhelming, right? You just don't know what to do. All these questions pop up, and they become almost some hurdles. Yeah. I'm going to skip this quote, but think about this quote. I read somewhere that research is not the plural of anecdote. I would leave to the audience. For want of time, I'm going to skip this. Right. I just want to share a few thoughts on what's going on currently in physics education research, at least the US, in the last 20 years. Somebody has used all machine learning and what is that called as natural language processing. And they presented a chart. What they've done is they've taken all the papers, probably the abstracts. I don't think they took the full paper. They took the abstracts from some several hundred papers. They tried to figure out what is happening inside the papers. So if you see, the top one is the, I think, which is the top one? Recent pink color, what is that? Yeah, it looks like community and identity. You see that on the x-axis, you have the years, and on the y-axis, you have the prevalence. I'm not sure whether it's a percentage or what it means. I'm not too sure. But an indicator of prevalence. You see most of them at the bottom, and something has shot up. And that's basically, what is that? Community and identity. It's probably addressing some of the questions you people ask about language and the local factors and all that. I think that's what people are touching on. So it is interesting that some of the questions and concerns you raised are actually being researched here to a large extent. So that's a room for that. Most of them are like problem solving, lab instructions at the bottom. I shouldn't say at the bottom, but relatively at a lower level, which is at the lowermost. Let's see that pink color, purple color. Oh, sad. That's sad. Actually, it's K-12. That's K-12 is like school education seems to be not so prevalent. I'm not too sure why. I probably think not many school teachers are involved in PER. That could be the reason. And they don't have time.
The y-axis?
It's some kind of a cumulative prevalence. I'm not too sure what that is. I need to look at the paper myself. It's a paper that I've given the reference there. You need to look at the paper and see how they define cumulative prevalence. But in some sense, I would say it's like, hey, these are all low in number. There's a high in number. That's what I guess. Maybe I'm wrong. I may be wrong. But I'm trying to get a very intuitive sense of what the y-axis could mean. But in any case, you have a sense of the topics. You can see there is some focus on quantum difficulties. I guess that will shoot up next year because that's 100 years of quantum or something like that. Because this is 2024, next year is 2025. I'm sure there'll be some call for papers. There'll be all these journals will say, hey, submit papers on quantum physics or something. Obviously, a lot of some grant money will be available for doing some research in those areas. So I guess that you might see a rise in quantum difficulties in the next few years. That's what I guess. So I was looking at this chart and I was thinking, okay, where is my research area in this? Is mine somewhere here? Hopefully it is, because these are the top 10 or something like that. And maybe mine is not in this, maybe. But look at it closely. Look at the last but three, the qualitative theory. That's where my work is at physics at Perdu University. I use qualitative techniques for research. So my area of research is using qualitative research methods, which I will elaborate the next few slides. But this is just to tell you what's happening in the field, and different people are exploring different things. The field is wide open. and Dr. Mira and others who are into PER actively can consider some of these ideas. Of course, you don't need to follow the majority. You can have your own field, because each one to each his own, and you must pursue what you like. But this is just kind of broad trends. Some of your students might be interested to get a sense, hey, this is what's happening. One advantage of getting to know this sort of information is that you can get some papers related to that area. For example, somebody says, hey, I'm interested in figuring out students' difficulties in understanding quantum physics. There are already some papers there. You can see what's happening in the community and then try to pitch your work or situate your work somewhere and then advance the field. Or you can do something which is very different from what others are doing. That should be fine as well, because who knows, you might be there setting a trend. Yeah, and then so I'm slowly getting to what I'm doing. So education research, I saw this is not mine, I just saw online somewhere, some author had presented a note on the two traditions of education research, probably. I mean, maybe are there just two? That's why I put a question mark. I would encourage the audience to think about it. People talk about quantitative and qualitative methods. As the name suggests, quantitative means you will use some numbers. Maybe you'll do some statistics, and something else which is called a qualitative. I met when I met with my professor. I remember it was June 1st week, June 2nd or something like that. That was my first meeting with my advisor, and he said, Ravi, what is it you want to do? I said, I don't know. And he said, then I asked him, Professor, what do you suggest? He said, please do what you like, not a problem. But as far as methods are concerned, people generally use qualitative, quantitative methods. When I heard quantitative, I thought, okay, I need to do all statistics, number crunching and all that. I was not too excited about it, because as a teacher, somehow I never bother with student exam scores. I don't ask them exam score. Hey, how did you do in your exams? When people come and enroll in my classes, I don't ask them, hey, what did you score in your 10th standard board examination? I'm not really interested in that. I don't really care, because I feel that exams don't convey what a student learns. I mean, I may be wrong, but that's my personal view. Please excuse me if you think my views are not acceptable, but it's just my personal view. So I never bother about exam scores. I'm never a big fan of exam scores. So of course, quantitative research doesn't mean you look at just exam scores. I mean, it's just my immaturity that I thought, okay, quantitative means you look at all those numbers. Without a second thought, I just said, I will do qualitative. I'll do qualitative research. Now, I had no clue about qualitative research. That's the point. I had no clue. I did not know anything about qualitative research. Just that I did not want to do quantitative. So this is almost like you don't want to do certain things. It's like, I don't want to do that. That's it. It's not because you want to do this, but it's just that you don't want to do the other one. I just said, I want to do qualitative methods. My professor, I mean, his style is like, he will allow you to do whatever you want. So, I mean, I'm not going to discuss what's quantitative, qualitative, but the slide is there. You can actually look at it and probably explore on your own. Then the next meeting, he said, I asked the professor, what do we do in qualitative research? He said, Ravi, you have to do some coding. I was shocked, because again, there are things I don't like in my life. I don't like computer science. I somehow said, I mean, years back when I was a BSc physics student, 1991 it was. That's when India opened up the economy and everybody went to engineering and computer science, those fields. But I did not want to. I said, I'm going to stay a pure physics person. I will not get into that computer science engineering stuff. That's not Ravishankar. Ravishankar will not do that. I mean, and you might say it's silly, or obviously I was young and I had my own views then. I did not want to do all this computer science. So the moment and I did not learn computer science for a long, long time. Now, of course, I was very good in programming in BASIC. I was very good at it when I was a student. That was a language you learned back then. And then some 15 years ago, I went to a session and I learned C programming. I learned a little bit of C programming. So I know a little bit of programming. I know that, but somehow for me, that's not physics. I will not do that. So my professor said, you have to do some coding. I was just shocked. I said, Professor, you want me to do, I don't know anything in computer science. How can I do coding? I don't want to do that. Then he said, Ravi, coding in qualitative research is not a coding which computer people do, right? We do it's called coding in qualitative research. That's kind of the first step which qualitative researchers engage in. So that's what he said. Then it came as a big sign of relief. Oh my gosh, I don't need to do programming. All that I don't need to do. It's another matter that I learned programming as well. Last semester, I enrolled in the course with Python. So I also learned how to do Python. So I know Python. It's not that I do not know. It's not that I do not want to do coding. It's not that I don't want to do computer programming and all. It's just that I want my focus to be on physics. It's more of a, what should I say, personal philosophy that I should do only what is called as pure physics. I mean, what I think is pure physics. That's not, I mean, it's a debatable what is pure physics. So my research is fully qualitative. So then I said there are the two traditions. Now, are the two fields as dichotomous as I presented earlier? I picked up a chart from another paper. You can see this paper. I forget what paper is. There's a paper there. You can see the reference. And they say it's actually a continuum. It's not poles apart. It's not like, hey, these guys are quantitative. These guys are like qualitative. It's not like a binary classification. It's like a spread. I think everybody does everything in some sense. So it's interesting. Let's look at what I do here. I don't do any of these things, but I mean, I did a project, by the way, Likert scales. I did a project, some statistics. I did 2 courses in statistics, by the way. I did a course on practical statistics. I also did a course on theoretical statistics. So by the way, so just because I said I will not do quantitative, it's not that I did not do. I actually did. I did courses in quantitative methods. I did 3 courses in graduate level courses in quantitative methods. And then I did a formal 4-course qualitative research method certificate course. I have a certificate from Perdu. I did a graduate level. Graduate means PhD level. 4 courses, that is like 12 credits over 4 semesters I did. I have a certificate in qualitative research. I'm still learning though. It's not that I have a certificate, I'm an expert. It's not that. Look at what I'm doing. I'm actually doing something like indexing. My first paper is like thematic content analysis. I'm also doing, I don't do a quantitative descriptive analysis. I'm doing a qualitative descriptive analysis. I'm using students' written documents. I'm using audio recordings of group discussions. Somebody said, the laboratory is my students. I'm not sure who said that. Who said that? Probably it was Pragya, probably Ashwini or somebody. I really like what that person pointed out. So I do that. My students are my laboratory in some sense, generating data for me. So these are things I do. I think I also do a case study. So my work is on the left side of the chart, so to say. So I should tell you what I do here. If you ask me what do I do, this is what I do. Anybody can, one short sentence, one line. You are allowed only one line. In one line, can anybody tell me what this guy is doing?
Sorting the postage.
Yeah, this guy is just simply sorting the mail,
Sorting,
right?
yeah.
Sorting. That's coding, by the way. So Ravishankar is doing just that. What I do is I sort. If you look at this, the next slide here, you can see those letters. Somebody has sorted those letters there. You can see these are on the left side. They're like, so these letters are kind of closed with a hole in the middle, and the right side, they're kind of open. So you've done some kind of a sorting, right? That's what I do. Basically, it's like categorizations. It's like Amazon doing it or Facebook doing it. They can, or LinkedIn, they can ask, hey, how many people like that video? Right? I do not know if they can dislike. I'm not too sure about that. Probably they can. So you can have statistics, right? You can. I mean, if you take statistics, that qualitative notion becomes quantitative. Like how many people like or dislike is a qualitative notion. Hey, I like it. I don't like it. It's qualitative, but you start counting, it becomes quantitative. So there is a blurry zone now. Is it purely qualitative or not? Depends on what you want to do. That's basically what I call as coding. Actually, it's in some sense not coding, it's actually decoding. By doing this, you're trying to unravel something. That's what happens. So it's though it's called coding, it's actually decoding, to decipher something. Now you may think, oh, that's all Ravishankar is doing. So it's so simple. Maybe I can do. Or maybe, oh, this is so simple. Why should he get a PhD for that? But hang on. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. So there are somebody pointed out about research methodologies and all that. So I have some data, then I do some kind of sorting. How do you do sorting? It's where your disciplinary background comes into play. Dr. Meera pointed out, and somebody else also pointed about having the importance of having strong disciplinary knowledge. And that's where you can do that. The sorting, you need a postman to do that, right? He needs some training. Ravishankar cannot do that because I'm not trained in that sorting. You see that? So it's not that simple. So this person has an expertise. He's experienced. He knows his job. He knows what to do. Of course, if I can go through the training, I can probably do the same thing. But I need to go through the training. So there is a way of doing it. There's a methodology of doing it. And that's what I'm learning and I'm exploring in what I do. But I bring in my physics knowledge, and I also invoke methods from qualitative research, formal techniques in qualitative research. Qualitative research in physics is actually it's picking up pace. In fact, I don't use any numbers. In fact, that goes back to my first question about is physics education research, physics research. Mine is even, it's at another level. Ravishankar doesn't even use numbers. You can't see numbers in my journal paper. No numbers. You will not see numbers. But then if you don't know numbers, then what would physics guys think? Physics people will say, hey, Ravi, what is this? I don't see any numbers. Looks like you must not be in the physics department. You must be in some other department. But hang on, I have answers for those questions. It was a deliberate choice, by the way. I'm happy that I chose qualitative research because what I'm trying to do is I want to demonstrate to the physics education research community there is a way you can do qualitative research. I want to demonstrate. And that's my first paper. It's coming up sometime soon. It's under internal review. Once it's in the I hope it's get published. I do not know. It may not get published. The reviewers may reject my paper. I do not know that. But again, it was a choice. Basically, it was to push myself away from my comfort zone. I have been doing the quantitative physics all the time in my life. I wanted to do something different. So I'm exploring something very different from what I've done all these years. So you may not, some of you may not be familiar with thematic analysis and codes and all that, but don't worry about it. But basically, it's a very rigorous field. Qualitative research has been there for a long time. It's a fantastic field. I love it so much. I'm enjoying my time in qualitative research. I'm glad I chose that such an area. So I would leave it to going back to, one question I asked myself was, is qualitative physics education research physics research? Does Ravishankar deserve a PhD in physics? It's a question I asked myself. I think I'll be planning, I'm planning an article actually to answer this question, and probably talk sometime if the IAPTs can get me in some time. Let me know, I can do that for you. So this is something I picked up from an article on how we do scientific research. You see that science begins with questions, like somebody pointed out, kids have questions, we all have questions, and we want to find answers. Then comes the method, like Mashood pointed out, like Aluwalia pointed out. There are a few questions one should ask. Number one, you need to ask, hey, what do I want to know? What is my research question? And then second question, I'm not too sure. Why is this research question important? I don't think personally it's a big question for me, because I ask a question because it's important for me. So personally, I feel that's not a very important question a researcher should ask, but that's more of a practical question, because when you want to publish, you want to say, hey, this is important. Or you want to get a grant, that's an important question. But personally, I don't ask that question myself. For me, I do things because I like doing things. Why do I do qualitative research? Because I like qualitative research. That's it. And then more important, the methods. That's where research really comes in. How do you get your data? How do you do your experiments? How do you analyze results? Because now you need to show some rigor in doing that. And then when you come to your findings, how do you connect your findings to your analysis? Now, those are all deep questions in broad scientific research. We look at this, these questions and this approach. Nowhere do they say you must be quantitative. So one has to be careful about criticizing qualitative research in science, because look at this, they don't talk about numbers anywhere here. So it's a very generic definition. So yeah, but I would be happy if people continue to criticize qualitative physics education research, because it only prepares me to look into my own research in more detail. So I love people counter me, hey Ravi, doesn't look like you're doing some physics research. I love that. I love to talk to those people so that I can refine my own understanding. I'm going to leave you with this. That's the last slide. I picked up from this book, Fatal Forces. It's a fun book to read it. And yes, any questions? Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Subramaniam, sorry. I promise this will be my last question. Yeah, I think you really hit upon the important point as to why people are tending towards quantitative research. That's because physicists always like numbers. They think only that is data, but qualitative data is not relevant data. That's the problem. I have seen somebody work on quantum mechanical difficulties with some space vectors being specified as a learning objective, all of that. It really took quantitative work to its limit. Yeah, but I think to be able to see social sciences, people don't ask that question, right? They are not doubtful of qualitative research.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay.
The point is, it's new. People, it's new. In fact, that's why I want to give a very detailed response. I want to take every criticism as it comes by, right? And for me, there is no existential crisis. I'm very happy, by the way. I'm very happy doing qualitative physics education research. In fact, I tell my friends, some of them, of course, they are very good friends of mine. I tell them, even if I don't get a physics PhD, it's fine. Even if I don't get an education PhD, it's fine. Even if I don't get a PhD, it's fine. It's fine with me. Because I am enjoying what I'm doing. It doesn't matter, right? Like Lord Krishna says, you just do your duty. Don't worry about the results. Yeah.
No, it also has to define the path for PER in India, right? So one has to agree that qualitative research outputs can be equally relevant in the system.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Good point. Good point. It's a challenge. So it's a challenge for qualitative researchers, and show, hey, there is this one way of doing it. There's another way of doing it. Please take a look at it. And if you think this is not acceptable, please tell us what's not acceptable. Don't say, hey, I'm not going to talk to you. Come on, let's please have a conversation. Tell me what is wrong in what I do. Tell me that.
Yeah.
There is one question on the chat from Samrat. I have a question which is relevant for the present time. How the evolving AI technologies like ChatGPT, Google Gemini will influence PER in both positive as well as negative way?
Good question. In fact, I'm actually involved in two projects, which my friends are. I'm actually writing one paper where they actually make use of ChatGPT. It's not my main dissertation paper, but I'm also working on it just because My colleague is interested in it, and I just want to see what's happening in that field. I'm already busy with my own work, but I like to keep myself very, very busy. So I'm planning to get another paper where we actually use ChatGPT. So there are pluses and minuses. There are pluses. That's one paper, and ChatGPT can be useful, by the way. It's very useful. I actually use it for my own work. By the way, when I do my analysis, I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use any technological tools for analysis. No software I use. I do it manually. I do it the whole old school way, paper and pen. The old school way. It's a very time-consuming process, but I believe me being intimate with my data matters to my research. So I do everything the old school. It's like getting your hands soiled. That sort of an attitude I have. It means I spend a lot of time on my work, but I love that. But coming to ChatGPT and AI, I'm actually working on one paper where we use ChatGPT to some extent. Another paper as well, which again, I'm assisting my co-researcher. I'm kind of guiding. And he is actually using ChatGPT to do certain things. So it's a useful tool. ChatGPT is a useful tool. Where, as my friend pointed out, it's like Google on steroids. ChatGPT is basically Google on steroids. So one has to be careful about what AI can do. But I understand there's a big buzz now. A lot of people are getting into it. It's like I said, right? Next few years, you can see a lot of papers on AI in education. There's going to be a lot of money. People are going to pump a lot of money in it because the edtech industry has a stake in it. So they're going to put a lot of money. Money means more opportunity for research. It's another matter whether it means good research. That's a very different question to ask. But yeah, the next few years, there is scope. And AI, whether you like it or not, whether you, whatever views you might have, it's going to be there. You cannot stop certain things, right? Long back when India brought in computers, I remember Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister, people were protesting, hey, we'll lose our jobs. Now every job needs you to use a computer, right? So I think AI is probably that stage now. So it's going to be there. People are trying it out in several ways. I'm also doing it in some form, but I'm not deeply into it, but I see my friends using machine learning, NLP techniques. They do a lot of things related to AI, machine learning, ML. Machine learning, big way. They do it in a big way because if you look at it, so mine is qualitative. I analyze only small chunk of data. Small chunks. So, but I go deep. Small chunk, deep. But then you can also have a broad spectrum of data. But you cannot go deep. But you probably can using AI tools. That's what they're trying. So what they're trying to do is use machine learning techniques, all this AI, to further their research. A lot of people are doing all that. In fact, most people are doing that in my research group. I'm the old school paper and pen person.
Can Dr. Jayakumar please mute your?
Yeah. So that's the answer to that question. You can go ahead, please. But I guess it's time. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think it's almost 8. We will wind up soon. So there is another comment from Baba Sutar. It came during the discussion on language. The main difficulty is that students have to learn a new language, that is physics, then actually understand it in terms of the same.
Yeah.
And now there's another question from Uttara. How can we integrate PER so we can help students with learning difficulties or other disabilities, but like science or hands-on students? I wish people who work on cognitive skills and education help. So special educators and teachers take up this area of science teaching.
Fantastic question.
Professor Ahluwalia, you have your hands up again. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm done from my end, by the way. You can please go ahead.
So thank you, Ravi, for a wonderful session. It was not a lecture, so that was a wonderful part of it. I just want to really say or make some comments based on our own experience. When we started looking into PER, we were trying to look at the literature, what you call literature survey. And then we came across one very interesting paper on this Google Scholar, right? And the title of that was, What Economics Education People Can Learn from Physics Education Researchers. So that was very exciting to look at it. And then we found that they are talking about basically how physics education researchers are using the techniques for finding learning gaps by defining, say, some concept inventories, etc., etc. So when you really look at that, when you start framing those kinds of questions, you start feeling that at least you are doing physics. Okay, you are focusing on physics itself. And maybe as a teacher, you know that you are teaching one particular subject, and maybe there are no other ways to find learning gaps from students, except from, some students coming to you and talking to you. Why not put this methodology into place within the classroom itself? So that was one message which we got from that paper itself. Second experience came from a Nobel Prize which was won by an Indian. You must be knowing his name, Abhijit Banerjee. And he has been working on what we call economics, but not economics in the sense of what we are calling as economics, but experimental economics. Now, see, a very new dimension is added to economics as a term itself. And what they have been doing throughout is, preparing those qualitative questionnaires, trying to guess something out of that, and making conclusions and giving those conclusions to the person who came to them that, look, this is my problem. Can you help me in solving this problem from the point of view of economics itself? And he got a Nobel Prize for that, along with his wife. That was very interesting about it. So it's not that term experimental is very much particular for science subjects only. I think we keep on doing experiments even at very many various places also. So when we look at this physics education research, we are doing experiments, no doubt about it, but with a training in physics at the back. That's very crucial. And that is where, we need to convince people that please don't think that by making use of the knowledge of educational technology, we are sacrificing physics. Rather, we are, making use of that to make our learning experiences in the classroom better. This is how one looks at it. And definitely, as Ma'am Meera was saying, there is a lot of there are lots of questions which are raised once you say, I want to do physics education research. There was a time when they started saying you cannot register a student under this field, PER, because it is not physics. So these are some of the barriers which are there. And I think when we are talking of today machine learning, and we are using it for doing physics also, and we are predicting certain very interesting even things with the help of that, we are making use of statistics at the back of that, nothing else. It's all statistics. And when you come to experimental economics, you are using statistics. And then I forget physics, in which when we are talking of statistical mechanics, we are using statistics there also. So I think we need to really tell people that, look, the way we are using all these things is something which is very relevant for our subject domain. And that is where subject education research must be given, some kind of a prominence in the departments and not in education department. But definitely, we should not mind shaking hands with the education departments also. I think this lecture has given another, there was one more thought which was coming to me was this, that we have had, this was the 15th lecture of the series. This is high time that we now come out with a panel discussion on the kind of questions which have been raised in this particular lecture itself. So thank you, Ravi, for what you may call as exciting us and making us think. And I think everywhere, whether you do physics or you do chemistry or you do English or you do political science, political science is one subject which has science as part of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what we need to do is make some, discussions so that we can bring more and more people into the picture and make them understand the relevance of this. Particularly with the coming of, otherwise, who used to bother about learning outcomes, say, 10 years back in the physics classroom? They will come, give a lecture, and go away. Now, national education policy is saying, first define learning outcomes. See what you are going to achieve. So, and focus is on learning. So now when we say, when we have given a lecture, whether my students have learned or not, the assessments, the traditional assessment methods do not tell us that actually. Maybe a student may not have learned, but may score 100% marks, and that is visible in our, school final exams also. So many students scoring 100% marks in English and 100% marks in physics. Look at the situation now. So I think that we need to really think about it and talk about it more. I would also really like to really comment on one thing which you mentioned in your lecture earlier. That was regarding demonstrations. There are certain demonstrations which we do say maybe in a auditorium, but there is a demonstration which we do in a classroom. These are very two different experiences for the students, because in the classroom we start applying that what we call as golden circle. We try to ask why, then we try to ask how, and then we try to think of what. Okay, when we start talking of these things, which is possible not in an auditorium but in a classroom, I think things will change. But that Mazur's classroom, there was some question, somebody talked about it, that our classrooms are very big, 80 students. He has been teaching in a class which is more than 400 students sitting in front of him, and then applying physics education research technology to really help them learn the things. So with these remarks, I once again thank you, Dr. Ravi, for a wonderful session.
I'm not doctor yet.
Whenever anybody gets registered for PhD, we start calling. Don't worry.
Thank you. So thank you for giving me a degree in advance.
Okay, thank you. So Mashood, please, floor is yours.
Yeah, with that, I think we have come to the end of this session. So let me thank Ravishankar again for his interesting and engaging talk. As Meera has mentioned, as Ahluwalia has mentioned, usually when people are talking to physics teachers, they take the easy route, saying that, oh, their physics research has a quantitative dimension, then try to explain those themes which are quantitative, like post-concept inventory. Even in fact, when I write and while I was writing in the IAPT bulletin, sensitizing physicists and physics teachers, I start by saying that, okay, there are this quantitative research that is done post-concept inventory, then you can do like classical test theory, just to like ease out that resistance which people like Meera mentioned. But you took the hard road, like you took the more audacious, saying that no, there is the qualitative aspect to it, and that is important and that is interesting. So that was quite compelling and interesting. Like somebody says it like openly and directly, and hopefully that talk will inspire some of the teachers to come forward and take up PER in whatever capacity that they can, or implement or get into some of the literature, so that even if they are not pursuing a PhD, they can incorporate some of the insights available in the literature in their classroom. So in that sense, definitely the talk was an inspiration, and it was insightful on multiple.
Yeah.
Thank you once again. Over to you, Dr. Sapna.
Yeah, so I would also like to thank Dr. Ravi. Yeah, it was a wonderful talk, and I think that we need to have another talk of yours on the IAPT platform. So whenever it's suitable for you, we would definitely like to invite you for another talk and proceed with the discussions, more discussions.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to spare my time.
Yeah, so thank you very much once again. And yeah, it was a very nice talk. Right. So with this, we come to the end of this session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very
Sapna,
much,
we must
everyone,
thank
for
the
joining.
audience also. They were very engaging in this lecture throughout.
Yeah. So yes, thank you very much, everyone. So with the hope that we'll have another talk of Dr. Ravishankar. So you have got a doctorate degree at IAPT platform now.
IAPT has already given me one. So.
Doctorate degree. So okay. So with this, we come to the end of the talk. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste. So thank you, Dr.